Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about philosophy and spirituality. These two terms can sometimes be used interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. Philosophy is the study of fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, and reality. It is a critical and analytical approach to understanding the world. Spirituality, on the other hand, is the search for meaning, purpose, and connection with something greater than ourselves. It can take many forms, such as religion, meditation, or community. In this conversation, I want to explore the relationship between philosophy and spirituality and how they can inform each other. Philosophy and spirituality are often seen as opposing sides of the same coin. Some people believe that they are mutually exclusive, with one dominating the other. However, I think that a more nuanced understanding of these concepts is necessary. Philosophy can broaden our spiritual horizons and help us to see the world in a more complex and inclusive way. Similarly, spirituality can deepen our philosophical understanding and help us to find meaning and purpose in our lives. One example of how philosophy and spirituality can intersect is in the field of existentialism. This philosophy is centered around the idea that our existence is essentially meaningless and that we have no control over our lives. However, it also recognizes the importance of human agency and the ability to create our own stories. This perspective can be enlightening for those who are searching for meaning and purpose, as it allows them to embrace a sense of freedom and creativity in their lives. Another example is in the work of John Muir, a naturalist and conservationist who believed in the interconnectedness of all living things. He saw the world as a harmonious whole, where humans were just one part of a much larger ecosystem. This perspective can be seen as a spiritual journey, as it encourages us to connect with nature and to appreciate the beauty and wonder of the world around us. In conclusion, philosophy and spirituality are two important aspects of our lives that can enrich each other. They can help us to grapple with some of the deepest questions we may have about the world and ourselves. I encourage everyone to explore these ideas further and to find what works best for them in their own lives. Thank you. They have some fundamental differences that can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. Spirituality is all about finding meaning and purpose in life, while philosophy is all about understanding the fundamental principles that make up the world. From a spiritual perspective, we seek to connect with a higher power or force that transcends the material world. Philosophy, on the other hand, is more focused on explaining the world around us from a scientific point of view. One of the main differences between spirituality and philosophy is that spirituality focuses on personal experiences, emotions, and intuition, while philosophy is more focused on intellectual reasoning. This means that spirituality may not always agree with the conclusions reached by philosophy. For example, someone who practices spiritual meditation may have a different perspective on the nature of reality than someone who only studies philosophy. Another difference between spirituality and philosophy is that spirituality often focuses on the importance of living a moral and ethical life, while philosophy often focuses on the importance of intellectual inquiry. For example, someone who is deeply religious may believe that their faith should guide their actions, even in the face of moral dilemmas. On the other hand, someone who is more philosophical may argue that moral principles should be based on logical reasoning rather than religious beliefs, despite into the world around us. For example, a spiritual approach can help us. So, in conclusion, while there may be some disagreement between spirituality and philosophy, both are important concepts that can help us understand the world around us. Ultimately, the key is to find a balance between our personal beliefs and the objective facts of the world. Some of the biggest, deepest ideas of philosophy and spirituality. Philosophy is the study of fundamental question. The ideas is the question of God. Many people believe in a supreme being or force that governs the universe. Others argue that there is no such thing as God and that all beliefs are simply human-created myths. This question of God has been debated for centuries and continues to be a topic of discussion in the world of philosophy. Another big philosophical idea is the concept of free will. Some philosophers believe that we have the power to choose our own actions, while others believe that our actions are determined by fate or other external factors. This idea is deeply rooted in the human experience and has been a source of great debate and reflection throughout history. Moving on to spirituality, one of the most important questions is what it means to be human. Many people believe that there is an inner spirit or soul that lives inside of us and guides our lives. Others argue that we are simply a physical body with limited abilities. This question of the nature of humanity is at the heart of many spiritual traditions and has inspired great works of literature and art. Another big question in spirituality is the idea of enlightenment. Some people believe that by reaching a state of inner peace and harmony, we can achieve a sense of eternal life. Others argue that enlightenment is a state of consciousness that can be achieved through meditation or other practices. This idea has been a source of great inspiration for many spiritual traditions and continues to be a topic of great interest to people around the world. In conclusion, philosophy and spirituality are vast and complex subjects that have fascinated people for centuries. The questions we ask about the world and ourselves are the fuel that drives our search for meaning and purpose. These ideas continue to challenge us and inspire us, and we hope that they continue to enrich our lives for many years to come. Other big topics are ideas of death and the self in spirituality and philosophy. Death has been a topic of fascination for humans since the beginning of time. It is a concept that has touched every aspect of our lives, from the mundane to the profound. In this discussion, we will explore some of the ideas of death and the self in spirituality and philosophy. First, let's talk about death as it is viewed in Christianity. Christianity teaches that death is a natural part of life and that we will all face it one day. However, the journey to the afterlife is not an easy one. The Bible describes the afterlife as a place of punishment or reward, depending on one's deeds on earth. The concept of purgatory, where souls go to prepare for the afterlife, is also central to Christian beliefs. On the other hand, Buddhism sees death as a temporary cessation of the soul's physical form. The soul continues to exist in a different form, known as the next of kin, until it is ready to enter the realm of the gods. This idea of death as a transformation rather than a definitive end is a departure from Christian beliefs. Now, let's move on to the concept of the self in spirituality and philosophy. The self is a fundamental concept that has been explored by many different religions, traditions, and schools of thought. In Christianity, the self is often seen as a creation of the ego, which is the separation from the divine that we experience in our daily lives. In Buddhism, the self is seen as a product of consciousness, which is constantly evolving and changing. In Hinduism, the self is seen as a complex interplay of physical, mental, and spiritual aspects. The self is often seen as a vessel for divine energy. An individual's spiritual progress is measured by their ability to connect with this divine energy. Finally, let's discuss the idea of death and the self in philosophy more broadly. Many philosophers, including Plato, Aristotle, and Nietzsche, have explored the relationship between the self and death. Plato, for example, believed that the self was a product of the society we live in, and that death was a necessary step towards a better form of society. Nietzsche, on the other hand, saw death as a liberating force that allowed us to transcend the limitations of the self. He believed that true freedom came from embracing one's mortality and living in the moment. In conclusion, death and the self are complex topics that have been explored by many different traditions and schools of thought. While each religion and philosophy has its own unique perspective on these issues, they all share a common desire to understand the nature of life and the self, the concept of mind and its relationship with the ideas of philosophy and spirituality. The mind is often seen as a mysterious and complex entity that exists beyond the physical body and is responsible for our thoughts, emotions, and behavior. However, the mind is also considered a divine power that can be harnessed to achieve enlightenment and spiritual growth. In ancient philosophy, the mind was seen as a vessel for consciousness that could be used to perceive the world around us. The Greeks believed that the mind was a form of energy that existed within the human body and was responsible for all our thoughts, emotions, and actions. According to them, the mind was also responsible for our ability to reason and make decisions. In spirituality, the mind is often seen as a gateway to the divine or the spiritual realm. Many spiritual practices, such as meditation and yoga, focus on cultivating the mind to achieve a state of inner peace and enlightenment. This view of the mind as a spiritual power has been a central theme in many religions, including Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. The idea that the mind is a powerful entity that can be used to achieve spiritual growth and enlightenment has also influenced modern psychology and cognitive science. Many researchers believe that the mind plays a critical role in shaping our experiences experiences and influencing our behavior. In conclusion, the mind is a complex and multifaceted concept that has been the subject of intense study and debate in philosophy, spirituality, and psychology. While there is still much to be learned about the mind, it is clear that it has the potential to be a powerful tool for achieving personal growth and spiritual enlightenment. Non-duality is a concept that tries to break free from the concept of duality, which is the idea that there are two opposing things that exist together. For example, black and white, good and evil, or heaven and hell. Some of the earliest thinkers who embraced the concept of non-duality were ancient Indian philosophers like Buddha, who taught that all phenomena are suffering and that our only solution is to abandon the idea of duality and embrace an absolute reality. He believed that the only constant in life is change and that all that we experience is a temporary condition. Other philosophers who shared similar ideas were the Taoists, who believed that everything is interconnected and that there is no such thing as a separate self. They believed that we should focus on our inner peace and harmony with nature to find true happiness. Then there are the philosophers of the East like Epicurus, who believed in the idea of an indestructible soul and that the body is just a means of preserving the soul. He believed that the pursuit of happiness is pointless and that we should be satisfied with our current state. Finally, we have the philosophers of the West like Immanuel Kant, who believe that there is no objective reality and that our perceptions of the world are what make it real. He argued that we should only believe in what we can sensibly prove with reason. In conclusion, non-duality is a challenging concept that tries to break free from the limitations of duality. It encourages us to embrace a more open mindset and to question our assumptions about the world around us. I hope that this brief introduction to non-dualistic spiritual ideas and philosophers has inspired you to explore these ideas further. We have the ancient Egyptian philosophy, known for their emphasis on the afterlife and the importance of Osiris, Ra, and Isis. The Egyptian philosophy was heavily influenced by the teachings of the gods. They believed in a cycle of life and death and that the soul was eternal. This belief was passed down through the generations, and it still resonates today in many cultures. Next, we have the Chinese Taoism. This philosophy emphasizes harmony, balance, and acceptance. It teaches us to let go of our desires and embrace the natural world. Taoism also teaches us to focus on the present moment and to live in the moment. It's a deeply spiritual practice that has influenced many aspects of Chinese culture, from martial arts to cooking. Moving on, we have the ancient Indian philosophy of Vedanta. This philosophy is all about the self and the ultimate nature of reality. It teaches us to merge with the divine and to achieve enlightenment. Vedanta is often associated with the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most celebrated spiritual texts in the world. Lastly, we have the Christian teachings. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ himself laid down the foundation for a secret philosophy that has inspired countless people for centuries. His teachings are all about love, forgiveness, and redemption. He also taught us to love our neighbors as ourselves and to forgive our enemies. These teachings are still relevant today, and they continue to inspire people of all faiths. So there you have it. Some of the most secret and fascinating philosophies of all time. Whether you're a religious practitioner or not, these teachings can be a powerful reminder of the mysteries of life. Vedanta is a philosophical system that deals with the ultimate reality of the world. Vedanta is one of the major branches of Indian philosophy, and it is also known as the knowledge of the self. In this talk, we will explore the basics of Vedanta and its significance. Vedanta is a philosophical doctrine that emphasizes the absolute existence of God or Brahman. It is also known as the non-dualism philosophy because it believes that there is no object or entity that can be considered as separate from God. According to Vedanta, Brahman is the supreme and eternal reality that exists beyond time, space, and form. The idea of Vedanta is to understand that God is the ultimate source of all knowledge, power, and existence. The philosophy of Vedanta teaches us that everything that exists is related to God. The world, including us, is just a manifestation of God's consciousness. One of the main principles of Vedanta is the understanding that consciousness itself is the ultimate reality. Consciousness is the primary force that creates everything around us. It is the source of all knowledge, awareness, and intelligence. In Vedanta, knowledge is not something that comes from the external world. It is something that comes from within us. The philosophy of Vedanta teaches us that consciousness is the only source of knowledge. Therefore, to achieve true knowledge, we need to focus on our inner consciousness. Another important aspect of Vedanta is the concept of Atman, or the soul. Atman is the individual soul that is eternal and self-existent. It is the source of all our consciousness and personal identity. Vedanta teaches us that there is no need to go after anything external to find meaning or fulfillment. The true meaning of life is to find inner peace and fulfillment. It is about realizing our true nature and identifying with the soul. Vedanta is a fascinating philosophical system that emphasizes the ultimate reality of the world. It teaches us that everything is related to God and our true identity is within us. By understanding the principles of Vedanta, we can achieve inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Gnosticism is a religious movement that originated in the Middle East during the 1st century CE. Gnosticism is often described as a sister religion to Christianity and Islam, as it shares some of the teachings of these major religions. Gnosticism is often associated with the teachings of Jesus the Christ, but the movement goes beyond what is taught in the Bible. Gnosticism taught that knowledge is power, and that to gain true spiritual knowledge one must leave the physical world and enter a realm of darkness known as the underworld. This realm was said to be a place of great spiritual power and wisdom. The teachings of Gnosticism were often expressed through symbols and images, and the movement was known for its secret societies and initiation rituals. These societies were often led by female teachers known as sages, who taught their followers the teachings of the underworld. Gnosticism also had a strong emphasis on the power of the mind and the importance of meditation. They believed that through meditation, the spiritual mind could be trained to access knowledge that was beyond the reach of the physical mind. This knowledge was said to be the key to unlocking the true power of the soul. One of the most famous Gnostic texts is the Gospel of John, which contains teachings that are not found in the Bible. The Gospel of John is often described as a sequel to the teachings of Jesus, and it contains teachings about the importance of love and the need to forgive one's enemies. In conclusion, Gnosticism's spiritual philosophies were a powerful and influential movement that influenced many aspects of early Christian and Islam teachings. The teachings of Gnosticism focused on the importance of knowledge, the power of the mind, and the need for inner spiritual growth. While some of the teachings of Gnosticism may be considered controversial, they continue to be an important part of spiritual exploration and development. Thank you for joining me in this discussion on Gnosticism's spiritual philosophies. It is often referred to as a mystical religion, though its teachings are more complex than that. Gnosticism is known for its emphasis on the inner knowledge or wisdom that is accessible to only a select few. In Gnosticism, this inner knowledge is known as gnosis, and the individuals who have access to it are known as Gnostics. Gnosticism originated in the East, and its teachings were passed down through secret societies. These societies were often involved in religious practices, though they were not officially recognized by any mainstream religion. Gnosticism was eventually spread throughout the Roman Empire, where it became a major religion of the time. Gnosticism had a great influence on other religions and philosophical movements. One of the most significant influences was on Christianity, which drew heavily from Gnostic teachings. In fact, many of the beliefs and practices of Christianity can be traced back to Gnosticism. Gnosticism also had a profound impact on the development of philosophy. Gnostic teachings emphasize the importance of inner knowledge and self-discovery. This idea is reflected in many of the major philosophical movements of the ancient world, including Epicureanism, Stoicism, and esoteric Buddhism. Despite its many influences, Gnosticism is not a recognized religion today. However, some individuals and groups still retain some of its teachings and practices. Gnosticism continues to be a fascinating and complex subject of study, and its teachings continue to inspire and challenge people from all walks of life. Hermeticism and alchemy, and especially Hermes, known as Trismegistus. Hermes, also known as the god of travel, trade, and communication, was the patron god of many different crafts and professions. He was particularly associated with the study of magic and alchemy, which were seen as routes to enlightenment and immortality. Hermeticism, as it was known at the time, was a religious and philosophical movement that emphasized the importance of inner knowledge and spiritual development. The heretics of this movement believed that knowledge was to be sought primarily through personal study and introspection rather than through religious ritual or dogma. Alchemy, on the other hand, was a set of practices that sought to turn base metals into gold. It was seen as a way to achieve immortality and achieve a perfect union with the divine. Hermes, as the god of travel and trade, was also closely associated with the art of alchemy. He was believed to have been the first practitioner of alchemy, and his tomb in Egypt was said to contain the key to the Garden of the Hesperides, where the elixir of life was said to be stored. The association of Hermes with alchemy and Hermeticism is not only interesting from a historical perspective, but it is also relevant to modern-day spirituality and self-improvement. Many people still associate the teachings of Hermes with the pursuit of personal growth and enlightenment. Hermes, as the god of communication, was also seen as a symbol of the inner self and the ability to think and communicate with one's soul. He was believed to have used his trident to split the sea and to have acquired knowledge from the goddess of wisdom, Athena. The association of Hermes with alchemy and Hermeticism is fascinating and relevant to modern-day spirituality. It reminds us of the importance of personal growth, inner knowledge, and the pursuit of enlightenment. When we bring these two ideas together, we can learn a lot from each other. Spirituality can help us find calm and peace of mind, while philosophy can help us see things from a different perspective. For example, if we are going through a difficult time in our lives, we can turn to spirituality to find comfort and guidance. If we are struggling with a philosophical question, we can turn to philosophy to help us understand it better. Another benefit of bringing these two ideas together is that they can help us become more empathetic and understanding of others. Spirituality can teach us to appreciate the beauty in the world and in ourselves, while philosophy can help us see things from different perspectives. By combining these two ideas, we can learn to see the similarities and differences between people and cultures and become more accepting of others. In conclusion, spirituality and philosophy are two related but different ideas that can bring many benefits to our lives. They can help us find meaning and purpose, develop empathy and understanding, and challenge our thinking. So, if you are looking for ways to enrich your life, I would encourage you to explore these ideas further. Thank you for listening. I love you all.